Good morning. My name is Jessie Pinder. I conduct sea turtle nesting surveys under a Florida marine turtle permit. All sea turtles are protected species. Disturbing, disrupting, or interfering with any sea turtle nesting activity or hatchling activity is against federal law. What I want to talk to you about today is what it is I do on the beach, as well as the types of sea turtles that we have. We begin our nesting season on March 1st, continuing through the end of October, and we have 3 common species of sea turtle that nest on our local beaches. We see our loggerheads. Caretta caretta is their scientific name. They are known for their large head. These guys feed on jellyfish and crustaceans. Their hatchlings are the smallest of all of our hatchlings. They're brown in color. They usually have a nice little pointy nose. They look semi-similar to the adult. This is Chelonia mitis, our green sea turtle. They are larger in body size, but smaller in head size than our loggerheads. Their coloration is absolutely beautiful. These guys eat a lot of algae and marine plants. Their hatchlings are similar to the adults as well. They're dark on top and very light on the underside. Absolutely gorgeous and so fast. This is Dermachelys coriacea. This is our leatherback. These guys are the largest of all sea turtles. They're different in the way that their shell is soft and leathery rather than a hard carapace like our other sea turtles have. These girls are amazing. This was my first leatherback mama sighting last year. Their hatchlings look identical to their mamas. They are also black with their pretty white stripes along the back, and they also are very, very soft. Leatherbacks will start nesting first in the season. The loggerheads start next. We are starting to get our loggerheads now, and the greens will start nesting a little bit later on into the season. Every morning I'm on the beach before the sun rises. I often get to have a very gorgeous view of the sunrise while I'm out there. I'll start up my ATV and I get going on my survey. We survey several miles of beach looking for new tracks. We don't survey every beach in Florida. We run a certain section here. And on certain beaches, we don't mark every nest that we come across. That is determined by the state of Florida, not by us, and we're just collecting this data for them. Every crawl is documented, whether or not the turtle nested. And when I come across a false crawl, I document what species she was. I document how far from the high water line she came up out of the ocean. I take a GPS mark, and I also document how close she came to the dune or a seawall, depending on where she is. When I come across any type of crawl, I have to let tomorrow's surveyor know that I marked this nest and documented it already. So I'll strike through it with my foot or drive over it with my ATV. This lets tomorrow's surveyor know that this one was counted. Turtles will occasionally begin to dig their nest and then abandon that egg chamber, and we'll often find that. We document those as well. When I come across a nesting crawl, I will record more data. Again, I document how far up from the high water line. I'll take a GPS mark. I'll document how close she got to the dune. And then I write on a pair of wooden stakes that are about 2 feet tall. I will write the date. I'll write the species ID based on her scientific name. I'll write the zone, the order in that zone of how many I found that day. And then on the back of the stakes, I'll write how far apart the nest was from the dune. And then I'll take a compass reading of the degrees west from the nest stake to the dune stake. The reason that we have 2 identical stakes is so that we will place 1 stake at the nest and 1 stake at the dune, and if one of those stakes go missing, we have a backup to collect that data again and then find that nest again so that we can collect the data when that hatches. With some of our beaches are public, so we have people walking around all the time, and we also have tractors that come through and clean these beaches. And if we want to protect our turtles, we put a perimeter around that nest that keeps people out and lets the tractor know, hey, there's turtles here and there will be hatchlings soon. With some training and a little bit of practice, you can learn the different types of sea turtle tracks. This is a loggerhead track. I can tell because the pattern is alternating. The loggerheads alternate their flippers as they crawl, and their hind flippers leave a little comma-shaped mark in the tracks. This turtle actually had something kind of off with one of her rear flippers because her rear flipper track on the right side made a step in the center of her track rather on the outside than the left side did. So I'm not sure exactly what was wrong with her flipper. I can't tell that, but I can tell that she was a little different. These are green tracks. These are very level. Their flippers move at the same time as they crawl. And because their flippers move at the same time, they do a pull and a stop, and then a pull and a stop, pull and stop. And that, with their tail, creates a little exclamation point type mark down the center of their crawl. Whereas when they stop, they kind of bump back a little bit, and their tail point creates a little poke in the sand. Leatherback tracks have got to be my favorite. They're so big, they're extremely wide, their tracks look like monster truck tracks, and they often weave or sometimes do a little circle before making it off the beach when they're done. This is a picture of what are called spacer eggs. These eggs have a very specific purpose. The nests of greens and leatherbacks is often about 3 feet deep or sometimes more. And these eggs have no yolk. They're not fertilized. There's no way that a baby could come from them. But their job is to create spaces between the fertilized eggs, and that allows a little more oxygenation of those eggs as they're developing. And since they're so deep, it's a lot of sand on top. Those spacer eggs are necessary. Sometimes a couple of those are left over in the cloaca after laying the eggs, and the female just kind of drops them out as she walks back. And that's what happened here. They're really neat. The nests of all of our sea turtles also look very different from each other. This is a loggerhead nest. She came up along the right side. She laid her nest along in here, and then she started walking about here and started going back. You can see the push marks in the sand that tell me that that's the direction she was walking in. Almost all loggerhead nests look exactly like this. They're very, very standard. Greens also have a real typical appearance. They dig this huge body pit that I've even stood in the body pits before and been up to my eyes with the rest of the sand. It's so deep, and they use that sand to fill in their nest and cover it up with this big mound of sand over here. She also came up on the right-hand side. She nested, she covered it, crawled out of her body pit, and then made her way back out. This is a leatherback nest. I can see her curvy tracks. They're real wide. They're very interesting looking. Leatherback nests are always kind of messy. They spend a lot of time disguising their nest, kind of crawling around and making their tracks hard to read. Her egg chamber is probably somewhere in the middle there. Once we hit the peak of nesting, we come across a couple hundred nests per day. The earliest nests that were laid start to emerge for us. The hatchlings leave a depression in the sand because they're a couple feet down. They start to crawl up out of the sand, and some of that sand trickles down below them and actually helps to push them up out of the nest, which of course leaves a little depression there. When the nest emerges, we mark the stake a little differently. We put the emergence date, and then we are told specifically which nest to dig on which day. We will count the contents of that nest, document what we find, and that information will be collected also. Live hatchlings are, of course, set free. We don't collect the hatchlings for any reason in our area. Loggerhead Marine Life Center is a totally different situation, so you can contact them for their procedures. You can see in this one that a lot of the tracks are heading in one direction. They are heading directly east, which is exactly what we want. Hatchlings that end up going to the north, south, or west are often disoriented, and that can be caused by coastal lighting, people with flashlights, animals scaring them. On a normal emergence, they all head directly east to the ocean. Like I said, we release all the live hatchlings. We count out the dead hatchlings, the unhatched eggs, the eggshells, all of those that are placed back in the nest and covered back up. They will be broken down by natural decomposition. All the data that we collect is submitted to Florida Fish and Wildlife, including the nesting data, the hatching data, disorientation reports, nesting obstruction reports, stranded turtle reports. We work under FWC issued marine turtle permits. Sea turtles at any stage of life are all protected by federal law. They are not to be disturbed in any way. They're protected by multiple different laws and acts. Any violations should be reported. If you find an injured sea turtle, you can also report that. Loggerhead Marine Life Center is usually going to be your resource for that, although you may call FWC as well. If you happen to find disoriented turtles, if you find stranded turtles, injured or dead turtles, your best option is to contact FWC and Loggerhead Marine Life Center. I have been lucky enough to see hundreds upon hundreds, probably thousands by now, of hatchlings, and every time they are absolutely magical. This is a little loggerhead. They can still have their little egg tooth on the front of their nose there that falls off shortly after hatching, but it helps them to pierce through the soft eggshell. These are leatherback hatchlings. When I'm on the beach, I typically have a container, like a small bucket, that I just kind of corral my hatchlings in as I count them, especially in a nest like this that had a lot of them. And then I count and release everybody. And that day I didn't have my bucket, so they ended up in my hat. Here is another loggerhead. This one happened to be pretty light in coloration. That one was kind of cool. A little blondie. Back, they have these beautiful big wide flippers. A green, they're so fast, getting a clear picture of them is tough. And one more green. All right, I hope you learned a little bit about the different types of sea turtles that we have in Florida, as well as what it is that sea turtle surveyors do. If you are looking for a little information on what you can do to help the sea turtles, that will come tomorrow.